Hello and welcome back to What Self-Care Looks Like. I'm Brittany Elliott. I'm a self-care and mom life coach. And before I dive into this episode, I want to talk to you about the mental load. The mental load is the cognitive labor that goes into raising children and managing the household. And oftentimes, moms carry a heavier mental load than their partners. And to help you assess, then sort your mental load, I developed the mental load audit. It's a printable document that allows you to rank the items in your load by their importance, and it highlights who in your household is carrying the weight of each task. And then the audit is packed with reflective prompts and action items to really help you manage your mental load because that is very important. The audit is available at backtiyouin5.com/resources, and I will drop the link to it in the show notes. Hey everybody, welcome back to What Self-Care Looks Like. I'm Brittany Elliott. I am your self-care and mom life coach, and I am here to help you prioritize your needs and practice self-care in a meaningful way so that you can reclaim joy in your motherhood experience. And I'm so excited about today because we have a guest. Latika Vines is here. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me, Brittany.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Y'all, I'm going to dive right into Latika's bio so y'all know just like a smidget about what she does. And then you'll learn so much more about her and her journey throughout this episode. So, grab a pen and paper, make sure you listen to it on repeat if you need to. I know there's going to be gems. So, Latika is a purpose driven and passionate working mom, empowerer, and workforce developer committed to turning career and organizational visions into initiatives with her proven vision framework. As the founder of Visionary Initiatives, a career and workforce development organization, Latika and her team provide learning strategies, policies, and programs to support the current and future career development and retention of working moms. Through her work, she has been recognized as 2019 Coaches to Follow, Amazon bestselling author, and nominated as an International Association of Women Member of the Year. And look, we got her on the show, y'all. Oh my gosh. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. Your work has been really beautiful, and I feel like it kind of was jump started really through motherhood. So can you just talk about the business of Visionary Initiatives? What's the mission and how does it look to actually implement the mission?
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me here. It is such a blessing to be here. I will tell you that for a very long time, I always knew that I was going to have a business. I didn't know what I was going to do, but it wasn't until um, I had my fourth living child, or when I was pregnant with her, that I had no idea that you could have depression while you were pregnant. And, it's interesting because I thought we were done. My husband and I thought we were done with having our three living children. And I was like, okay, everything is good. We don't need to have any more children. And I prepared myself to get my tubes tied. So I got off of birth control and did all the things that I needed to do. And the moment I go in to get on the table so they can, do the tube tie procedure, I had to take a urine test to ensure that I wasn't pregnant. And lo and behold, I'm sitting there on the table, undressed, ready for the procedure. And they're like, Miss Vines, you need to go ahead and put your clothes back on. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. What's happening? What's happening? You're pregnant. Not only are you pregnant, you're like, I think it was like 8 or 10 weeks pregnant at the time. And I was like, oh God, you're funny. You're funny.
Wow.
Um, I was depressed for the entire time I was pregnant because I had no idea how I was going to be a working mom of four, commute back and forth from DC into the suburbs of Maryland. My commute was already an hour, adding on, children going into elementary school, children in daycare. How am I going to do all of this? And then, of course, she was born. And of course, for those few months, those, moments of terror, if you will, escaped. But then when I went back to work, I felt depressed again. And by the time that my daughter was 8 months old, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. And she prescribed me to take off from work, to
Oh.
seek therapy. And she said, get yourself together. And I took advantage of that and got myself together. And what I realized through that time was, one, I'm not alone. There's so many other people in this world who are scared. You think that you're done having a family, and then you end up pregnant by the grace of God. It's like, oh my God. And then how are you going to balance having multiple children, going back and forth, to work in this commute, trying to go up the career ladder at the same time. And then at the same time that I was going up the career ladder, my husband was going up the career ladder. So and like, I had all these questions, but I realized, and I also got a mentor at that time too. I realized that again, I was not alone, but I had more going for me than the opposite. And
Mm.
so I had to look at everything and say, okay, God, you tell me that you're not going to give me more than what I can bear. So you're telling me that in my weakness, you're going to give me your strength. So in these moments of feeling like I'm alone, feeling like I can't do this is hard, breastfeeding a child, and then the third living child, she's kind of like the middle child, so she got the middle child syndrome at like 2 years old, and like dealing with that, and then the two oldest, them going into elementary school, and it's all these things. And God was like, I got you.
Mm.
I got you. And so I had to find peace in God, that He will comfort me, but He will also give me the strength and the strategy to do all the things that I needed to do. And so from those moments of taking time off from work, seeking therapy, having my mentor, and mind you, my entire career at that time was helping other people go up the career ladder. So
Mm.
I already had the mindset of what it needed, what I needed to do to go up the career ladder. And I was doing it for everyone else, making sure they had plans and holding them accountable and getting them where they needed to go. But for me, I was struggling. And so God was like, I got you. I got you. And so when I went back to work from that break that my doctor prescribed for me, God clearly said, and now that you have yourself together, now that you have the strategies, now that you created the plan of how you're going to manage everything, home, your relationship with your husband, church, because at the time I was leader of 6 ministries at the time, and everything else that I was doing, He said, now you need to go help everyone else. And so that's where Visionary Initiatives was born. And that was in September. I created Visionary Initiatives in September of 2018. And here we are 6 years later, doing wonderful things.
Yeah, y'all are doing great things. But with that story, I just know that speaking of, the terror of discovering that you're pregnant, right? And I think we don't talk about that a lot. So many people are like, oh, the joys of motherhood, the joys of pregnancy, the joys, the joys, the joys. And I think that's really how it's branded with intention. And there are a lot of joyful spots in motherhood. I truly do believe that. I think the brightest spot is that you have a child and you have a relationship with them. Everything outside of that can be quite scary, no matter how prepared you are, no matter how many times you've done it. So, how long did it take you to get to the point where you can say the emotions that I felt were indeed, it was terror, I was terrified, and I also was depressed and I needed help?
Yeah, from the time I found out I was pregnant, 8, 10 weeks pregnant, to she was 8 months old. That's how long I was
Mm,
in this cycle, if you will, in this season. And it was terrifying because I had all these thoughts in my head of how I was going to manage all that I had. Um, that was the terrifying the part, and for me, having had given birth at that time, I had already given birth to four children. Three were living at the time, and so knowing what I had to do to take to bury my oldest daughter. She died from sudden infant death syndrome 19 years ago. And so knowing what that felt of missing my daughter, seeing her actually, take her last breath essentially, I felt guilty for being in that season of terror when I was pregnant with my last child.
mm.
And so all of those emotions were playing, not just in my mind, but in my body. And so it was a long time. To me, it felt like a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, such a season, and I love that you share that because so many people go through that. They lose a child through SIDS and then, getting the courage, getting the strength to try again, or maybe not try and then get pregnant
Hmm.
and dealing with all that. Some people are trying and they're miscarrying. Some people are trying and just it's not happening. So many things. And then it seems like through all that, once we get pregnant, the expectation is that we're just exciting and we're just glowing and we're just enjoying every single minute of it and we got it. And a lot of times we just are not. So it's not a surprise to me that you were then called to help other women through this process. When you say working moms, what do
Hmm.
you mean?
Absolutely. So I am serving women who are mothers, biological, adopted, step parent mothers, who are caring for children, who are caring for elderly parents, who are
Mm,
caring for individuals in their home. They could be their sister, they could be their brothers. They're caring for people in their home, who are going to a job, whether they're um, in the house working virtually or going into a building. They are managing, they are balancing work, a career, and also home. And so
mm,
those are the individuals that I focus on, that I coach and train in the business.
that's beautiful. And I feel that we do need those systems that you discussed, right? Like you said, you set up these strategies, you set up this process, you've created systems. Now go back into the world and like, let's share this with other people. I find in the work that I do a lot is that women don't realize that you have to do the work for this process. It's not just get a mentor. It's not just get a coach. It's not just go to therapy. It's set up the processes in your home and change your lifestyle and run them accordingly. So how do you help working moms and caregivers really do that?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I share with them, of course, is the vision framework, and what I believe that is God gives us a vision. He gives us a vision of how we are to operate this life that He has, and He asks us to be stewards over that. And so,
Mm,
with that, you have to go to Him and say, okay, you gave me this. I need you to tell me how to manage it. And so, with that, I share or encourage and empower working moms to go back to God first. Go back to God first and say, okay, God, what is it that you want me to do? How do you want me to manage? And it works because when you put everything in Him, on Him, He's going to give you everything that you need. And so I share the strategy of how to hear God, and then how do you put those things that God has given you into place? And then having the discernment, the wisdom of Is that what you need to do now? Or is that something you need to do in the future? And in the future, meaning 3, 5 years from now. Because a lot of times God gives us things and they're not for today. So, how do you use the discernment to decipher what is what? And then creating the plan to do that. And so that plan, it allows you to have habits, the routines, the motivation. So, what do you do when you're not motivated? What do you do when you have a bad day? How do you build up the strength? How do you build up the resilience to keep on pushing and doing what you are required to do? And so, through a coaching program, I share with them how to do those things, and I use that vision framework to build that strategy while also giving them the accountability to do it. Because like you said, so many of us, we see the plan, we know the plan, but we don't have the accountability that's checking on us, that is really just in encouraging us to do it. And so I bring that accountability piece. And then also by me sharing, like, hey, I've been there, I've done it, I failed, I got back up, I did it again. I was successful. Like, for me to share that with them for the 3 months that we're together, it's a blessing because they see real life. Someone did it. And then the blessing is I also bring other people in our coaching sessions for them to hear and gain from other people who've been there and done that and got the t-shirt. And so it's a beautiful process that we go through. It's an individual program. So even though I have a framework, even though I have, a structure of how this is supposed to go, it is solely based on that individual's needs because not
Mhm.
everybody is the same. And so again, it's what that mother needs, what she needs in this moment. And then we have an annual event that I bring them to and say, hey, here's more encouragement. Here's more networking so you can meet other working moms who are in the same place as you are or were in. So it's a beautiful, beautiful process.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it, and I love that you are making it unique and individualized to each person. Also giving them the opportunity to connect with other mothers who have gone through it, who have been there, who completely understand what they're going through and can give them different perspectives.
Right.
Because I know for me, and I know you've been around since 2018. I had my daughter in 2018, and I felt like when I was struggling, I just could not find, like I could not find
Mm,
anyone, anything. But then it's like that's what I think, but when I really sit with it, I don't even know that I knew to look or, what I didn't know at the time because so often we hear, if you feel like this after you have your child, that's normal. These are normal. And I didn't feel until years later that, you know what, even though you say that that's normal, that's not normal for me. And I don't want to feel like that. So if nothing else, I always try to encourage people, it doesn't matter what they, them, whomever, doctors, your mom, your neighbor, what they say is normal. If you're feeling in any way the way you do not want to feel, I don't care if your baby's 1 week old, 2 months old, 2 years old, 4 years old, it does not matter. If you are not feeling the way you'd prefer to feel, seek out help and seek out support because, and I think you would agree, Latika, like we don't actually have to feel a lot of those things that people say are normal. So I love that. I love that you do that
absolutely
for them.
agree. Absolutely agree with
So
you.
I would like to know more about routines. So the importance of routines, specifically how your morning routine works and how you get moms to stay committed to their routine.
Absolutely. I always go back to the question, why?
Mm,
Why? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? And that is the motivation. And so, and it's so funny because yesterday I was at a retreat. And one of the things that really stuck with me that I wrote down, and I was like, oh, that's so good, I got to use. the the question that you have to ask yourself is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And I was like, oh, that's so good. I'm going to use that. Thank you. Because you got to really ask yourself, like, really? Why do I have to do this? Is it really worth all the effort? Because when you're thinking about, I think about that question, is the juice worth the squeeze? When you're thinking about a lemonade and you're getting lemons, like, it takes a lot of lemons to make lemonade. It takes a lot of lemons. And if you're doing it manually, the squeezing and the carpal tunnel that you get from squeezing a lemon, one lemon, to get a little bit of juice out of that, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Now, don't get me wrong. We want the natural lemonade. We do. We want the natural lemonade. But guess what? There's probably a grocery store 10 miles down the street that has a natural lemonade where all you got to do is maybe pay $4 for that gallon of lemonade, and there you go. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And so with working moms, it's the same question. Is it worth it? Why are we doing this? And so for me, when I get up every morning, why am I getting up extra early to work out? Why? I'm strengthening myself, so I'm building my endurance for the day. It's time where I get to spend with God, because I have my when I wake up, I'm getting up early before anybody, even my husband, spend my time with God, and then I work out. So now I'm able to listen to different sermons. I'm able to listen to different podcasts, worship music while I'm working out. And so by the time that the first set of kids gets up, I've already spent time with myself and with God before anybody else has gotten up in the day. So I have the endurance for what's coming. I've already prepared for what's coming for the day. That's why I get up early in the morning before everybody. So for me, yes, it is worth getting up an hour early before everybody else has to get up. And so, my husband always teases me, and he says, by 8 o'clock, you've done more than most people have done all day. And I'm like, yeah, because I realize that if I don't do that for myself, I'm not good for anybody else. Not an employer, not clients, not my children, not my husband, not my neighbors, not the carpool line. I'm not good for anybody if I don't take time for myself. And so that's the first thing that I do in the morning is, why am I getting up? Why am I getting up early? I'm doing this because I need to prepare myself for the day. And I'm not talking about making lunches and doing all those things. I have to mentally and spiritually and physically prepare myself for the day. So I always start in our coaching sessions is why? Why? Why is that necessary? Why? And once you have your why, you don't need anyone or anything to motivate you because it's always the why. It's
Mm.
always the why. So that is something that I teach, but also something that I live by.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very much the same way. And I get frustrated when I see and hear moms are like, oh, that's a waste of time, or I would never do that, or as soon as I do that, my kids are going to interrupt me. And I always just say, there's always an excuse or a reason to not do something. My challenge to you is try it out. Like literally try it, because so many people are just like, no, that's not for me. And I say, okay, well, how did it work when you did it the first time around? Oh, I've never done it. Well, how do you know that it's not for you then if you have not tried it? And I think that when, especially as newer moms, when we're trying to hold on so tight to our control, like we're just trying to keep this locus of control and not accepting that we are not actually in control and that we need to just be in acceptance of that. When you start to let things go, you can also create space to let new things in. And it sounds like that's the work that you are doing with your clients on like a daily
Absolutely.
basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's the saying? Closed fist. Don't, what is it? I can't think of it right now, but like closed hand don't get fed or something like that.
Y'all know what
It's
we talk about.
yeah, but it's the truth. Like if you don't release, then you're never going to be able to gain. And it's so true because the word tells us that when you praise and when you worship, you get pouring and pouring of blessings upon blessings upon blessings. So there's something to it by you releasing. You have to release.
Yeah, absolutely. And that segues into how do we divide the household tasks, right? Because how often have you been stuck in situations where you're trying to hold on to this thing because the way you do it is best? We're not going to say that, but that's how we feel. And then our husbands are like, you want me to help, but you won't let me
Right,
help. So,
right.
how do you divide the household task in your home and then encourage other people to do the same thing?
Absolutely. So one thing that I had to learn is my role in the home.
Mm.
What is my role? So, of course, I have a leadership role in the home. My husband is the head, of course. But what I had to realize is that I have a role in the house. And, we think about the Proverbs 31 woman, and her leadership role. But what I share with my clients is the role of Sarah, Abraham's wife.
Mm.
And, Sarah, sometimes Sarah gets a bad rap because, what she did, with, uh, you know, um, getting, her husband to lay down with her handmaiden, and then they had a child, and she got a little mad when they got a child, and, she get a bad
Got
rap
a
for
little
that.
messy. Got a little messy. Got a little messy.
But, aside from that, she respected her husband.
Mm.
She respected her husband, but she also was one of the few females who were in the hall of faith, which is found in Hebrews.
Mm.
And what I had to realize by learning from her is that my role is of faith. That's my role. My role is of faith. And so anything that I needed, anything that needed to be done in the home, I needed faith. That means I need to trust that God will take care of it. Now, it took a while to get there. I'm not going to lie, but the more that I practiced it and the more that I learned about Sarah, and I break this down in the coaching, is that Sarah was an empowered woman. She was an empowered woman. And so because of her faith, God gave her promises. God gave her a vision. I mean, if you really think about it, God gave her the vision and he said, hey, you're going to be a mother of many nations, just like he gave Abraham the vision that he would be the father of many nations. That didn't mean that it was going to be right then and there. It was going to be in his timing. And so I looked at her example and said, okay, God, I need faith. I need faith to exercise this leadership role that you have given me in this home. So what does that mean? Well, as a leader, you are to empower. Leader does not mean that you do. A leader means that you empower, that you motivate. Yes, you may give instruction, but that doesn't mean that you do. And in order to help that person or the people that you are empowering to strengthen their skills and their talents and their gifts, you have to let them do it. And so I had to learn that in order for me to empower my husband, in order for me to empower my girls, in order for me to empower anybody, I had to let go. I had to let go. And so, it's interesting because when I was growing up, my mother said, I'm going to teach you how to be independent so you don't have to worry about, leaning on anybody else. But what she was saying is that I'm empowering you to have the skills necessary to manage your own home. And so what I have done with our family is that everyone has a job, even from the 7-year-old to my husband. Everyone has a job, everyone has a chore. No, you do not get paid for these chores. This is your job in this house that you live in, you know? And so everyone has a list of, I actually say it's a little ghetto, but I got like a cardboard box and put like everybody's, like what do you do? Like in your bedroom, what are the things that you need to do in your bedroom? In your bathroom, what do you need to do in your bathroom for it to be clean? So that means you need to mop the floor, sweep the floor. You need to make sure the counters are clean. You need to make sure the mirrors are clean. Like I had to break everything down for everyone to realize this is how you clean the bathroom. This is how you clean your bedroom. Clean your bedroom doesn't mean that you shove everything underneath your dresser or underneath your bed. It means organizing your clothes, making sure your clothes are folded and put it in the spot where they need to go, making sure that your bed is made. And no, I don't mean keeping the sheet, unraveled underneath the bed spread and then you just throw the comforter on top. No, you do it a certain way. So you get the flat sheet and you do this and you get the fitted sheet and you make sure it's tucked in and that is what you're supposed to do. But what I've done is empowered the kids to, hey, this is how you clean. This is what you gotta do. Now, do they do that to the T? No, they don't. They don't do it to the T. But what I do is say, okay, you did the things that I asked you to do. It wasn't to what I would do. My bed may look differently from yours, but guess what? You made your bed. You have no clothes underneath your bed. Your clothes are put away. Your closet doesn't look a hot mess. Your bathroom is clean. I walk away. Because how am I supposed to empower? How am I supposed to set the example for my girls if I'm constantly after them saying, okay, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, I would have done it this way, or I can't, I can't, I did it, and it drained me. It drained me. And so all of my children, my husband, we share, responsibilities. I tell my kids all the time, I'm the only one in the house that's sharing beds. Y'all got your own bed. So I should be the one that's huffing and puffing and crying because I got to share a bed with someone. But y'all got your own beds. So y'all make up your own beds. Your daddy and I, we share a bed. So, we share that responsibility of making up the bed. But also one of the things that I discovered too is I have to communicate. I have to communicate my expectations. I have to communicate what I need. And I also have to communicate, hey guys, I'm gonna be real. I don't care what y'all do when you get older, but in this house is gonna be clean. And we're gonna keep it clean.
Yeah.
Cause y'all know how y'all like your friends to come over and y'all like to have whatsoever and whatsoever come after church with us, in the car with us. Don't you think you want to keep your house clean for them? So I have those conversations, with my kids, of course, but it's communicating like, hey guys, I prefer that the house be clean. I prefer that, when we go to bed at night, the kitchen is clean. I prefer that, hey, when we go to bed at night, we're all upstairs. I turn the vacuum on and the vacuum is vacuuming the floor. So the floor is vacuum first thing, in the morning, we don't have to deal with it. That's what I prefer in the home, you know. Did they all think I was crazy at first when I said it? Absolutely. But when they saw the fruit of their labor, that empowered them to go ahead and do what they're doing. So here we are years later, and even the 7-year-old, she knows I don't have to say a word. You make up your bed, you do all the things, clean up. Her and my 9-year-old have to share a bathroom. So the 9-year-old, she takes a Lysol wipe and she cleans the counters off after, they do their thing in the morning. That way when you come home, you got a clean bathroom. But I don't have to say those things. They do it, and it's part of their habits, to do it. But me communicating and empowering them are two of the biggest game changers that I ever experienced in my life. And now I've taken that with every relationship, you know, it's communicating my expectations and then also empowering whomever. But I really had to understand that I had to take a leadership role in my home, you know, and that doesn't mean that I do everything, but that does mean that I empower everyone. And so, you know, there are days where, you know, my husband, we give the kids a break from whatever and we'll, you know, clean up their room or, you know, whatsoever. But that's what they're responsible for. They can do that. But I, you know, again, that takes you prioritizing what's important, you communicating that, and then you also knowing, hey, you don't have to do all of it. You don't have to clean your kid's room. You don't have to clean, I don't have to clean my kid's bathroom. I don't have to do these things. You know, I don't have to, you know. And then other folks, you know, that I've worked with, they have the resources to hire help, you know, and so go for it. Hire the help. Hire what you need. If it's a laundry service, if it's a cleaning service, you know, hire the help to help you get there. But you have to empower them. You can't come off of the, you know, after them and say, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't. Empower them, you know, let them know up front, hey, this is what my expectation is, and let them do it, you know, empower them. But that's the biggest thing. Those two biggest things is, or I should say three things. Knowing my role in the home, which is a leadership role along with my husband, and then empowering and then communicating what I'm desiring, I'm expecting.
Yeah, and I love that. And the work that we do is just so similar. There's so much overlap, and we're really working in tandem to really support this demographic of moms. And I love to bring other people who are in this fold onto the podcast because this is to me what women supporting women looks like. It's like you are my colleague in this. We are not, competitors, and we are so able to learn from one another and what works and what doesn't work and how we communicate with people. Because when you were sharing that story, if you're the leader in the household, I did the same thing. I had to back up and say, okay, what is my role here? What does my organizational chart look like in my home? And we literally drew it out. And then I said, okay, well, what is important to me? Because I actually don't have an expectation of or as high of a standard of cleanliness that my husband does. So he and I had to communicate and really come to an agreement and collaborate. And I'm like, hey, I can do my best to maintain your standard. Here are the things I'm going to need to do that. We need to have some Lysol wipes in every room so that we could always, anybody can just do a quick wipe up. Then that's where, for our listeners, that's where these systems come in. Like, these are my expectations. This is what I want. Now, what do I need to have at home to be able to maintain this expectation? Because if you're not willing to work for what you want, then you may not want that. And that's okay because Latika and I don't have to have the same standards to still be, very much high achievers, great mothers, great spouses, doing all these things. We don't have to have the same standards, but we need to know what our individual standards are, right? When we come and have conversations. And that communication piece, Latika, I will say that 98% of the time, the women that I work with, they forget to communicate. Like, they just literally are like, oh, my mental load, there's so much going on. Like, okay, audit your mental load. You did all this, you did the audit. Now, what happened when you talked to your husband about it? Oh, well, no, there is no he just. We're partners, right? Do you ever experience that there's a bit of a, like, we're married and we're not partners though, like they just don't act that way? How do you work through that with them?
Right. Now it is the what is it called? Single mom married or married single mom. Yeah, that's what it is. Married single mom. And so I had to dispel that and say, hey, when you took that vow to marry your husband, you created a partnership. My husband jokes and said we created a contract, but it's a partnership.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
partnership. And so everything that you do, you have to do with him and vice versa. And so what I have taught is that your husband is not your enemy. He is your partner. And again, there goes back to Sarah. And biblically, in the scriptures, Sarah called her husband Lord out of reverence, out of respect for him.
Mm.
And, I'm not saying you got to call your husband Lord. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is take her example of showing respect to your husband. Because the Bible says that the husband is to love his wife, but the wife is to honor her husband. And so, again, I had to take the steps first. Um, I had to honor my husband and I had to honor his role and his role as the head, his whole role as the provider of our home, and me being that co-leader with him. And I had to we had to look at it as a business. He's the chief executive officer and I'm the chief operating officer. So I'm operating the day to day, but executively he's the head. And so we do things together. And what that does is it builds a beautiful relationship first and foremost, but it makes it easier for you to communicate your expectations and your needs. And so I do teach that. Now, I do encourage that if that is a hard thing for you and maybe your husband and you are not there, that therapy is a method for you to go to next. And I share my own story that hey, I had to go to therapy. I had to go to therapy. And for a year, I had to gain these skills to learn how to communicate to my husband and not and one thing too is that a lot of the working moms that I worked with that I also experienced is that I was afraid of the rebuttal. I
Mm.
was afraid of what my husband was going to say in response to what I needed. But I was putting negative things in my head that never actually happened.
Ugh.
They never actually happened. And so I'm in therapy and I'm like, okay, so what if my husband says this or this or this or this? Like, what if he comes back? Like, I'm panicking and I feel the tension all throughout my body because I'm making things up in my head. But what I had to realize is that the devil will keep you trapped. He will
Mm.
you'll keep your mind busy being under Satan's yoke. And so because you are under his yoke, he's going to infiltrate your mind with all the negativity of what your husband is going to say. And now how you're going to give that rebuttal back to him. And so now you guys are not seeing eye to eye. And now you can't go to him. And now your mental load is through the roof. And now, like Tabitha in the Bible, you need a resurrection.
Mm.
And so that's where therapy has to come in because the therapist can give you those communication skills on how to talk to your husband, and then also debunk those thoughts that are coming to you. And so I share just some of the things that I had to go through, again, therapy, some of the practices that I had to do, the work in therapy in order to communicate. But also I had to realize if God gave me this vision, then he's going to equip me, or he's already equipped me with what I need to implement the vision. So by me going to my husband and saying, hey, I need this, and he says, bet I got it. That's it. But it that is something that again I struggled with for years. Therapy has helped me, but something that I definitely share with the clients that I coach and teach that hey, communication is so important, and I take a leadership approach to communication because there's different ways to vocally communicate
Mm.
what you need and how it's all about how you say the word and not what you say. And so I do take a leadership approach in coaching and training on how to communicate. But if there is already tension and you don't feel that there is a partnership already, established, then that's where I refer you to a wonderful therapist, wonderful, wonderful therapist who works with working moms. And you can go to Dr. Candace and she can help, with that. But yeah, it's a process though. It's a process.
Beautiful. Yes, shout out to Dr. Candace. And
Yes.
I think that's just so important too, because I think of communication too as a muscle. Just like
Yes.
when you first start to go work out at the gym, some of those muscles, you haven't worked them in a while, you start working them out. At first, it's like you can only get 3 pounds up. Then you're sore and tender. Then you can get 5. Then you can get 10. Oh, now I can get on, the bench press. Now I'm
Hmm.
getting stronger. So the more that you do it, the more comfortable it gets. And
Right.
then it's like, okay, I tried this and that didn't work out too good. So let me just
Hmm.
go back. But I think you made such a good point. Once you have it established that this is my partner, that they don't want to see me struggling, I don't want to see them struggling. And they are going to give me grace if I come in and I say something a little too slick, like, oh, I didn't mean it. Let's take a break and let's come back together and talk about what we need. I always say, if you're not really good at talking through it, because some people feel a little
Right.
bit anxious in the body to come and bring things, like write it down. I mean,
Hmm.
text, send an email, like once a month, once a quarter. I think it's really important to connect with your spouse and just sit down and say, hey, let's like talk about our relationship. How do you feel things are going? Like little progress reports. And, do you feel loved? Do you feel love from me? Like, how can I show you, what can I do? Because this is our partner for life. And hopefully, right, God willing, we're going to have a long life. Like,
Right.
why? Let's be happy. Let's be happy
Hmm.
in this life. Let's love each other better. Let's love each other more strongly. Let's, show our children what love looks like. Let's show them like authentically working through things. And that has been, I mean, for us, just very helpful. And I mean, there's a lot of just bad examples of what love can look like out there. There's a lot of good ones. So try to just really just be drawn more to those good ones and reach out
Right.
and ask, because Latika is here with the program. She here she's
Yes.
resources to help you and support you. So before we tell the listeners where they can find you, can you just let us know how you actually found that work-life balance that you speak of?
Absolutely. Well, I can proudly say that I found it by understanding what my priorities are. Understanding what my priorities are. And um I will be honest with you, when I don't know if you do the wheel of life with your clients, but I do this wheel of life, and it's kind of shaped in a pie. And so
Mm,
you cut out the different pieces, and identify, different aspects of your life, spiritually, physically, financially, all the things. And I'm doing this pie for myself. And I realized that I was in 6 ministries at church. And not only was I in the ministry, I was in a leadership role in these ministries,
wow.
on top of 4 kids, commuting to work, doing all the things. Oh, not to mention, I also authored and published my first book in September of 2018. So I'm doing all these things, and I had to sit down with myself and with God and my husband and say, I can't do this, because I had to look at my priorities. Is my priority to be a leader in these 6 ministries, or is my priority to lead my home?
Mm,
Now, not to say I'm not supposed to lead ministries, but again, I had to go back to God and say, God, I know you gave me the vision, but that vision wasn't meant for today. That vision was meant for years from now. And I'm going to be honest, Brittany, that vision that God gave me, I am living in today, of leading ministry.
mm,
But it wasn't 6 years ago.
gotcha.
It was not 6 years ago. So I'm here doing all the things and wearing myself out because I didn't have my priorities in order. And so for me today, I understand that work-life balance is under, again, that why. What are my priorities? My priority has been my family. And so, what am I going to do to make sure that that is my top priority? And so, everything that I say yes to, everything that I say no to, is going to affect, it's going to impact my family. So, I have to be more cautious of that yes. I have to be firm in that no. And if it's not going to bring me peace, I have to back up. I have to be humble enough to back up away from that thing or people or whatsoever. But it is my priorities, recognizing my priorities and moving from there. And I truly believe that when you understand your priorities, understand your why, understand the season that you are in, that
Mm.
life will be so much easier when you understand the why. You understand the why, but it is those priorities.
Yes, and I love how you mentioned, and I could go on and on forever about this, so we're gonna have to bring you back on to talk about this. But because just no, you just said that so eloquently, and just like understanding the season of your life in proximity to the vision, because we are high achieving women, right?
Yeah,
We were just on this track before children even came
right.
into the picture. And so we're trying to do all the things, forgetting that we don't have to do all the things right now. We just have to build that roadmap. And I know for me, I can be doing 20 things and not feel overwhelmed if I'm doing them in the right
Mhm,
season,
mhm,
or be doing 20 things in the wrong season
mhm.
and feel like I am just gonna fall apart, right? So knowing where you are, what the timing is, understanding your priorities is so important. And I think everyone feels this, it's almost like this uneasiness about once I make decisions, once I make my priority list, I'm going to have to justify my choices to other people. And you actually don't have to justify your choices to anybody. A no
Mhm,
is a no. You don't have to
mhm.
explain it. A yes is a yes. You know, the price is what it is today. It may not be yesterday's price. Today's
That's
price is
right.
today's price. Different things like that. And that just comes from, and I hope our listeners take this away, this comes from time too.
Mhm,
We're
mhm.
talking about this business from 2018
Right.
that she started in 2018, but she's talking about she's been developing the skills, been in this industry, been doing this work for so long. You know, maybe in 2005, you didn't know that this was going to
No.
be what it would be in 2018. You were
Mm-mm.
still, you know, grabbing all your little breadcrumbs up
Right.
so that you had a whole loaf by the time, you know,
Mhm.
2018 came. So don't rush the process. Don't rush the
Yes.
process. It takes time. Know your priorities, sit and take that time, because earlier in this episode you said I get up in the morning so I can spend time with God, so that I can spend time on my mental, my physical, and my spiritual. Y'all, you should probably be hearing like some themes, some common themes here, because what we're saying
Yeah.
is so true. And I don't know, Latika seems very happy. I don't want to speak for you, but would you say, are you happy?
Listen, I am more than happy. I have found joy. I have found joy. Um, mm, I'm trying not to get emotional here, Brittany. I have found joy because I truly understand what the key is.
Mm,
I understand the key, and that is giving everything to God, giving everything to Him. And when you give up everything, that control, that you, when you release it, the world, you have so much freedom and you're at so much ease when you release it. And, and I would tell you, when you release it, the relationship that you have with your husband becomes 100 times better, 100 times better. And I am a testament that by me releasing and giving it all to God, He made me better. He made my husband better. Because I'm going to tell you, when I started to, the things that I share with the clients, when I did the work myself, my husband saw a change in me.
mhm,
And by him seeing a change in me and how I approach things and how I do and setting the boundaries and having fine, clear lines, he started doing the same. And so now we're on the same page. We're on the same page. And I will tell you now, we've been married for 16 years. We've been together for 18 years. We have a better relationship today than we did when we were dating.
Mm.
And it's because I released, he released, and here we are together. And so now our children get to experience it. Now I'm gonna tell you, my husband still thinks I'm crazy sometimes. Like October 31st came around and I was putting up my Christmas tree and all Christmas decorations in the house, and he was like, "You're crazy." But I was like, "But you're gonna help get this stuff from out the basement, right? And bring the stuff upstairs and, help me put this up, right? You don't have to do nothing. I just need you to bring everything upstairs. Be the muscle man and bring all the stuff from the closet and come upstairs." Because it was like seven, seven of those long tubes that you get from Lowe's. And so he
Hmm.
still thinks I'm crazy, but we on the same page because he brought everything up, right? So
Right.
it's all good. But it's things like, but I can joke about that because my husband and I are there. So it's joy. It really is joy. And with joy you have peace and you have forgiveness and like all these other things and patience, and you have these things because you released it all. And so yeah, I have joy. I'm so grateful for the joy.
That is beautiful. Let everybody know where they can find you. I so enjoyed this conversation. We're going to have you back. Let us know where we can
Yes.
find you.
Yeah, so I am on social media at Visionary Initiatives, all one word. And I am on Twitter at Latika_Vines. And then I'm also, you can hear the podcast, Empowering the Working Mom podcast, on all podcast platforms. And I'm so excited because we have coming up our virtual summit, which Brittany, you were a part of 2 years ago. And so that's coming up in March. And so I'm so excited. So by following us on social, you'll be able to participate, register and participate in our upcoming virtual summit that's going to be in March. So I'm so excited, Brittany. Would love to have you there. So please join us.
I'm gonna try to make it. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the work that you do, not just the work that you do for your clients, but the work that you do for yourself. Because if you weren't doing that work for yourself, we would not be able to benefit. So I appreciate you.
Thank
And
you.
to our listeners, thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to What Self-Care Looks Like. Again, I am Brittany Elliott, a self-care and mom life management coach. I help working moms change their approach to motherhood so they can feel vibrant, empowered, and fulfilled in their motherhood journey. My group coaching program, Reconnect, is built around the 5 wellness pillars that will help you feel the most whole as you balance your motherhood role with your personal needs. So be sure to check in with yourself using the free wellness quiz at backtoyouin5.com/quiz.